Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Steer Career Podcast. I'm Alan Stein, your host, founder, CEO of Kadima Careers. And on today's podcast, I am really excited to have a product management expert, a tech veteran, James Gunaca. James and I met in Lenny's Slack group. Lenny's is a great resource for anyone in product management, frankly, anything in ops and marketing and tech related as well. It's been really helpful. If you don't listen to Lenny, his podcast is a popular podcast. He has a Slack group that's really popular. James and I met there. Then we connected on LinkedIn. Anyway, James and I have continued our relationship, and now he's an impressive product management coach, and now he is one of our Kadima coaches. So that is our background. And now I'm going to introduce James. And James, tell our sick audience a little bit about who you are.
Thanks, Alan. And thank you so much again for having me on the podcast. Great to be here. And also great to be supporting Kadima Careers and really just helping more people on their career journeys. So a bit about me, as you mentioned, I spent some time in big tech, but my career spans multiple fields, multiple parts of the world, multiple arcs, and I'm now on the third arc of my career. But I started in the Bay Area a little over 20 years ago, where I went to university. And when I started my first interest in marketing, which is what I got my degree in, then I did some market research work for a company, which was like doing customer research for a bit. Then I spent about 10 years doing digital advertising and marketing, thinking that was what I was interested in. But along the way, I stumbled on building things for people rather than just marketing things to people. And that kind of drew my attention to product management. Not long after I left the Bay Area to move to Seattle, I started looking for other opportunities and was fortunate enough to land a role at Amazon, where I'd spend almost the next decade of my career, a few years in Seattle in the headquarters, working on Amazon Echo and the Alexa voice assistant for a number of years, which what an amazing opportunity I had to work on that. But when my time was wrapping up working on that product, I knew I wanted to work on something else in the company, and I wanted to try living and working abroad. So I came to Europe right at the start of 2020, which is an amazing time to have moved to another part of the world where English is not the primary language, and I don't speak French natively or any other language really. And so that was fun, but it was a great experience just living in another part of the world. So I did that for a few years. When I decided to leave Amazon, I came to the UK, where I've been for a few years now, again, in various product leadership positions. And then in 2023, not long after I had come to the UK, like many in tech, my role was affected by a redundancy, and not just mine, but my CPO, my CTO, half my product team, entire functions at the company were affected. And this kind of acted as another big point in my career where I wanted to reflect on what really drives me, what motivates me, what do I want to do? I've been coaching people as a practice to keep my leadership skills sharp, and just because I really enjoy working with people. And so that's when I decided to spend time and start working with people on their careers. And I'm now nearly 2 years into that journey, working with people exclusively on their careers. And that's a bit about my journey so far.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. So you had a very fortuitous career at Amazon for 8 years. It looks like you moved up within the organization, you moved around the world, and you were on, seemingly looking at your LinkedIn profile, a good career trajectory. And I'm assuming you did well. Did you get promoted at Amazon?
I did. In fact, that promotion was, I think, within the first 18 months, which is a really fast track at the company. And it was a combination of two things, really. It was, I started as an IC, and within the first 12 months, Echo, which I was working on, was just starting to really take off. Again, what an amazing opportunity. I was very fortunate. When I was interviewing, we have the dash button and we have Amazon Echo. And I was like, Echo, I want to work on that. That I see that as like a future technology. There's tons of opportunity versus a button you just push that they don't sell anymore. And it went end of life a couple of years after. So I made the right choice there. But I remember sitting in a conference room, and one of my directors came and they said, "Hey, do you have any experience managing a team?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I've managed people at my last job, and that's something that I've quite enjoyed. How can I help?" And she said, "I think you're going to need more people. This business is growing. We've just greenlit more products, and we're going to need to have a team. And we'd like to give you an opportunity to try to do that." So that basically gave me scope to start hiring people. So I hired my first product management role within a couple of months after that. And within the next 6 months, I believe it was, I'm talking with my manager about career growth and they're putting me up for promotion. But it wasn't just like promotion from like a product manager to senior product manager. It was like product manager to a manager of product managers. So that was something that went well. First passed through, had directors who then became VPs who were weighing in on that. And so I was very fortunate to both have that opportunity to have made it through that process. And then just the next 4 years I was on that business, the team just kept growing and growing. And then I was managing managers and others. And so that was a bit about what that first part of my journey at Amazon entailed.
That's awesome. Big product, big team, big responsibility. And then fast forward to wherever you want in terms of the end, like, or talk about the rest of your journey between that and you were ascending. And this was in Seattle in the headquarters.
Yes.
Until 2019 or so, looking at your LinkedIn profile. And then what happened from there to take you to Europe?
Sure. So it was about 2018, I think, when my team had grown quite a bit. And then the pace of growth at the company and for Echo, I would say outpaced a little bit of my own growth. And so this was a difficult thing for me to accept. But a manager came into me and said, hey, we actually think that this business that you're working on, it's going to require even greater scope and responsibility than like we've given you. You're doing great, right? But this business is critical to the success of the company. And although you're doing a great job, we don't think you're ready yet for this next jump. So someone else is going to come in over you. And that was a very difficult conversation to walk out of with my manager at the time. So I went back home, talked to my wife and reflecting on this. And while it was really difficult in that first day to accept that message, I reflected on it quite a bit more and said, you know what? I was in a leadership position and I had other leaders well above me. I think at this point, I was maybe just 4 levels away from Jeff Bezos. And here I am responsible for something that's driving hundreds of millions of dollars of business on the retail website. And here's just this one guy who's been here for a couple of years, done well, but are we going to trust this much scope and responsibility to this person when if we were to go open a new role, it would be much higher level? I was like, you know what? I probably wouldn't also take that chance. I would probably bring someone else on, but still do what I can to support this person who maybe had done a great job. And so I was okay with that. And I got on board with it. I had a great support system around me and I got over it. But at the same time, I was thinking, all right, what's going on in my life? What's going on with my family? What's going on outside of my job? And I was married at the time already. I had a 1-year-old daughter. And I'm thinking, hey, what's 10 years away from now look like? What environment do I want to raise my child in? And my wife, who is from another part of the world, we met in San Francisco where we both lived and went to university. We talked about potentially living in another part of the world. Hey, I work for Amazon. If I want, they're all over the world. Maybe they're supportive of me going somewhere else. They'll pay and we get to experience something else. If we don't like it, we can just change. We can do something different. Why not? We have this immense opportunity to do this. Let's think about it and talk about it. And so we decided that year, let's go visit and travel to Europe. I'd only been once before as part of a backpacking trip many years before. She had never been. And so we planned a trip for the winter of 2018 to visit Luxembourg, where Amazon's EU headquarters was, Paris, and Brussels. And so like, all right, let's just take a 1-week vacation and we'll go out there and just get a sense for it. And I had to like describe this to a bunch of people on my team without them thinking, is James leaving? Is James going to move away? What's his real plan? So fast forward another few months, the summer of 2019, I'm taking on larger scope. My team has still grown, even though now I've got a senior manager who's overseeing part of the team that I used to lead. But now my team's growing even more. And then the same boss who came to me and said, hey, I'm bringing in someone else to help you scale your team up, said, hey, I have a new opportunity for you. And I'm curious if maybe you're not going to entertain it, but I'd like to share it with you anyway. And it basically was a larger scope team, more responsibility, more hiring to do. We would get a chance to promote some managers into other like future backfill type opportunities. And so I took that opportunity and then worked on that for a number of months, but then was just finding, hey, am I learning new things outside of just leading the team and like growing and developing talent? What are the problems that we're going to be solving over the next 12 or 24 months? And also there was some manager changes that started to happen. That manager who gave me that opportunity, that happened. And then she rotated. She left that org. And then I'm reporting into my then director, now VP. And he's super supportive of my growth. He gives me this big scope and responsibility for Prime Day. So I'm like handling parts of Prime Day. I'm handling my team for all these upcoming to be launched products like Amazon Astro and the Ring and Blink acquisitions and launching products for them. And he's all supportive of my growth. And then he brings on a new manager from somewhere else in the company. And that career support and growth just stopped. I made this mistake, which I reflect on and I tell people about, that I put a lot of trust in that director to make sure there was continuity in my growth. And then the first time I have this growth conversation with my then manager, he seems surprised. He's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean like promotion? What are you talking about?" And I had like clear conversations with my director. It's like, "You're top tier, you're on slate for this next cycle, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this new manager is going to come in, he's going to help, and there's just continuation." Right? So it was total bullshit. Put my faith in that conversation. And then like I crush it on Prime Day in the summer of 2019. And my new team is growing and everything's going well. And this new boss comes in and he basically just says, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And sorry, but it's not happening for you this cycle." And I'm like, if you're not going to give me the opportunity, like I've proven myself across this organization. I know and have sat next to my SVP multiple times. I've taken documents all the way up. I've scaled teams. I'm like, what else do you want? You want me to just to stick around and wait for you to do your job and support my growth? No, I have other aspirations and I'm not going to let someone string me along. And so I started looking at opportunities in Europe because that trip I took, I'm like, hey, this seems really fun. And I, again, had this future lesson to be learned, this belief that, hey, because at that point it was almost 5 years, positive trajectory, promotion, multiple top tier ratings, that momentum would follow me wherever I went within the company. So I sought out other jobs and I created or I used a rubric that I've built and used throughout multiple times in my career and said, what are the attributes of the next job that really matter to me? And one thing that was really important was I want to work with a large engineering team where there's opportunity to build things. I want to work in a space that I'm passionate and interested in. That was important to me. It needs to be full-time in Luxembourg. We decided on Europe, and Luxembourg was the headquarters. Not a lot of opportunities in London at the time. And management was on there, but it wasn't like number one for me. And so when I found a role that checked all the other boxes, I went for it and I happened to get it. The challenge was, I'm not going to be line managing people anymore. And so I'd already been coaching people. I'd been gone through a coaching training program. I was like, I can keep doing that while on IC. And that will help me operate in another business, acclimate to living in a new part of the world without also having to balance line management. And that was the story that brought me to Europe. But the hard-earned lesson that followed was at a large company like that, I expected that all of the trust that I had built in over those years and being in meetings with executives on a regular basis, like weekly, that would somehow just carry over. And my experience was so different. It was now, I think I met with a director once a month, and then I didn't even get in front of our VP for about a year. And even before getting into that room with that VP, it was so much scrutiny on everything that was being done. And I'm like, why do I have to prove myself to you, boss and boss's boss, that I can go in there and have a conversation with the VP and speak about my work? Like I've had conversations with SVPs and VPs all over the world for multiple years at this company, and you have all my performance history here. So that trust didn't carry over. I had to rebuild it. And that was a lot of work.
Yeah, that's terrible application of what they're trying to do there at Amazon. And how did your end occur there ultimately?
So in that org, I, again, got to the point where they said, hey, in terms of promotion path, I think I was on path for a principal at that point, whereas before it was like on path to senior manager. So I absorbed switching cost, and I knew there would be switching cost to leave the US and leave the org. What I didn't understand was just how high that switching cost would be. So after a year, I pretty much had a conversation with my manager and my director and said, look, this is what I'm looking for. And I've delivered value. I've completely overhauled the way this entire product and tech org manages their roadmap. You had tech debt of 70%, which you didn't really disclose to me in the interview process. I've worked with your engineering team to burn that down to 30% so it's manageable. And I've delivered some value. What's next? What else do you need to see? And they were basically saying, come do a PRFAQ, come get some funding because we need to expand the scope. The scope's not here. I'm like, this is a concept I'm familiar with because I had been managing people there. So I knew the game. So I started to do that work. And then my boss leaves, switches orgs within the company. Then the director basically hires a senior manager of engineering that's now my boss instead of a product person as my boss. And so this time I'm like, all right, I'm not going to wait now that I have this new boss to have this conversation. It's like very direct. Hey, look, this is what's important to me. This is what I'm after. What's it going to take? And at this point, I'd been like taking this $3 billion opportunity, PRFAQ, been doing the rounds. I've presented to my VP. He seems keen on it. I'm now shepherding it to other VPs and directors around the European region and getting their buy-in. And he basically tells me, he goes, well, this is great and all. And let's assume this gets funded. He goes, but then you're going to have to deliver it. And so that's like 1 to 2 years away before this actually starts to drive some return on investment.
It's like a carrot continuing to be out in front of you as a horse.
And so I'm like, pissed off about this conversation. But then that manager who told me years ago and said, hey, James, I think this business is growing faster than you are, and told me, hey, someone else is going to come in and you're going to report into them now, basically adding a level in between. She reaches out to me and says, hey, I have a principal product manager opportunity. Thought I would reach out and see how things are going for you over there in Luxembourg. And are you interested? Because the team, we've got some people in Europe, so you'd be working with some people more local to your time zone. Because this Luxembourg role I was in, I had stakeholders who were based in Europe, but my dev team was all on the West Coast. And so I was like working late nights all the time. I get to have my mornings with my family, which I valued. So I was like, yeah, let's talk about it. And then informal process, go and talk with a former VP who actually was my bar raiser mentor when I went through the bar raiser training program, Jason Van Dyne. So I met with him, met with my former manager, and then they turn around. They're like, all right, we're going to offer you the job. Come in. You've got the scope. As long as you just do what we know you're going to do, like no problem. You don't have to fight for scope. It's there. So I take that job because there was no clear growth opportunity in the role that I was in. But then I get backfilled for the second time in a row by the level in which they wouldn't put me in, which that pissed me off. But then a month after I take that new role, I get on a call with both of my director and then that VP, and they basically say to me, so there's a big reorg that's going to happen and your role is affected. And oh, by the way, your boss is leaving the company. And so I know we brought you on to do this role, but now you're getting a new boss who you don't know. And the scope of what you're going to be working on is going to change. But at least they were kind enough to give me what was called a dive and save, which is here's some stock units that will vest immediately. We're going to increase your salary by something like, I think, 10 or 12%. And please don't quit. This was 2021, I believe. Yeah, like middle of 2021. And so this was a time when Amazon was like starting to hemorrhage talent a bit. And so they would make these dive and saves to people they really wanted to retain. So I was, of course, happy to oblige. But then it was like, now what am I going to work on? And this kind of led to the last arc at Amazon, which was owning the internal search engine called Inside Amazon Search. So if you've ever worked at Amazon, you go to a portal, your hub for finding any information about employment at Amazon is all on Inside Amazon, and search is what you would use to navigate and what people
it's like their intranet.
Their intranet search.
Like at Google, we had MoMA, and Facebook, I had like Workspace, but yeah.
And it was a terrible product. And more than half of all searches, people would abandon because they wouldn't find what they were looking for. And
no one wants to work on an internal tool.
No one wants to work on an internal tool. We later found, because we inherited, like my org inherited it as part of this big reorg that had just happened. Turned out some team on another side of the world was just managing it from a KTLO standpoint. It turned out it was actually contractors, like it was out, like building it was actually outsourced to Deloitte. And so even the tech stack,
right.
So I basically became responsible for this internal search engine, and the company had outsourced building it. And so it was just a complete mess. And then I wrote a goal to basically tackle that problem for 2022. And then that goal got up leveled from an org level goal with my director up to a VP level goal, then to an SVP level goal with Beth Coletti, who runs the entire HR org at Amazon, which was like a 60,000 person org that year. And then it got nominated for an S team level goal, which meant Jassy, now CEO, and all the other SVPs would be looking at this goal amongst others from all the other S team members organizations. But all of a sudden, super high scrutiny on this product, which to me was like, hey, great opportunity, back in an opportunity where I'm presenting plans to an SVP, getting feedback, socializing updates, and difficult problem to solve, but not one that's so ambiguous that the chances of success are really low. And I thought that would be a great thing to do. And so I worked on that. And while it wasn't an easy thing to do, come Q4 2022, we were ready to launch. And right around the time we were beta testing the new search feature is when the layoffs get leaked by the Wall Street Journal and then get talked about internally at the company over the span of a couple of days. This was all happening as well under a series of circumstances I recently wrote about where despite owning this goal and what I believe, was a good enough job I was going to hit the goal, and I did hit the goal. I had a manager or a director actually, my skip, who we just did not get on. And I would later find that it wasn't just my relationship with him that was sour. There were others as well. And I've had a low tolerance for assholes. And I'll be completely blunt. This guy was an asshole. And here I am now on a string of scenarios where I feel like it's been almost another 5 years since I left the devices business. And it's just been this constant having to prove myself again and having to deliver results and then have the carrot stick moved along. And then here I now have this director who's just at any time just giving me shit and making my life miserable, despite being on track to be the only S-team goal that was going to hit in his org for the year. Now, of course, I can reflect and say, hey, are there things I could have done better throughout that year? Absolutely, right? There's always ways in which I could have done things better. And I had some mistakes along the way that maybe played a role, but on a whole, do I think that it was reasonable to no longer be in the conversation at all with respect to my career growth? No, I didn't think that at all. But the signs were clear. The company was starting to lay off tens of thousands of people, US first, and Europe was going to be next. And so already now I'm talking to other directors that I know at the company and trying to understand like what's really going on behind the scenes. And it had now been a multi-month long effort of identifying talent that they were just going to get rid of. And people were making lists. Here's who I need to keep. Here's who I don't need to keep. And then where are there circumstances where employees' situation maybe doesn't align with what they want to do over the long term? And where are we potentially overpaying people that we can move out to save the company some money? There was actually a conversation that I was involved with that year where Andy Jassy was quoted as saying, let's bias towards hiring more contractors because, the situation gets bad. If the situation gets bad, it's easy to let them go. And I didn't think much of that call out at that point in time. It was just like, oh, we're still trying to scale, trying to get a lot done. It's faster to hire contractors. And we actually brought on some contractors to do some work to hit the goal for my search product experience. But yeah, basically I finished the launch and the situation got so toxic with my boss and my boss's boss that I was like, this is bullshit. I'm not gonna give this company another opportunity. And so I spent the winter of 2022 again doing deep reflection, right? What are the things that I have in front of me that I could be gaining? What are all the things that I've learned so far? And do I want to give this company another opportunity? And do I want to manage through the risk and ambiguity of like layoffs? They got started. They usually don't like, hey, we're done. There's waves. It comes in waves. And so I didn't want to stick around. I was in Luxembourg. I was on a visa. And if I lose my job, it's either leave the country and go back to the US. I didn't have somewhere to go or find something else. And so I was like, look, all the things I've been able to achieve at Amazon are going to serve me well for my career going forward. And there's nothing that's obvious that's available to me within the company to navigate through this. So why stay? What do they really have to offer me that would keep me here? And so I did what everyone does when it's time to work on finding a new opportunity. It's define what it is I want to achieve next. It's reflect on what the current job market is like. I hadn't spent a lot of time looking externally for a while. And I managed to get a job offer that relocated me to London. And in a relatively short period of time, for what was a very uncertain time in tech, the first half of 2023, or somewhere around that time, about 2 years ago is when I moved here. And I timed it with an exit at Amazon.
How did you find that role? And that was at ExpressVPN, head of product and growth?
Yes, that role, I was leading a team of 5 PMs. I reported into my CPO, who was based in Singapore, and he was brought in. He was formerly at Uber, and also I think he also worked at Grab. He now works at Wise, and a great CPO. And he says, "Hey, I need you to come in and take care of this product team who have undergone a lot of uncertainty and stress, and there's maybe even some misalignment in terms of expectations about their growth. And oh, and by the way, I need you to own this particular space on experimentation. You need to hire someone for it, but the problem has a very short-term need that you won't be able to hire your way out of. So roles open, team of 5. You're on the leadership team. So come in here and like help. I need a product leader who can come in here and help." And so I did that. What I didn't realize, though, was the day I got my offer letter was also the day a private equity firm decided to make an offer to buy the company and take them private off of the exchange. And so private equity comes in, brings in some new people a few months after I had been onboarded. And it was near time for mid-year reviews. I'm doing all of my team's reviews. And then it was, "Hey, your open roles are frozen." I was like, okay, just while we're figuring some things out. And then there was like this leadership offsite that was planned. Travel gets frozen. And then you're like, okay, like something's going on here. And my boss is not communicating anything with me. And then it's now all of the reviews that have been done don't deliver the outcomes to any of your employees and to any of your staff. And so the writing was on the wall. It's like, all right, this is time to go. So it was right back to, I need to start preparing and applying for jobs again. I've just went through this. I'm still on a visa. And so now that the pressure is really on, because it's very clear that my job's at risk. And then, I got pulled in to an office meeting with other VPs. Some of my direct reports are like calling in on Google Meet. And we're all pretty much told at the same time, "Hey, after this call, some people will receive an email, and that means that your job is at risk of redundancy. And if you do not receive the email, you're fine." And so this meeting ends after 5 minutes, and then just immediately, like, I'm getting pings from my direct reports like, "Hey, did you get the email? Did you get the email?" And then I get an invite to join a meeting with HR. And I'm like, either this is me losing my job, or this is them telling me who on my team is going to lose their job. Like, you'll tell me so I can tell them. No, I join a call, and it's like basically everyone who is getting laid off has been invited to this call. So here I am, like my VP of engineering who I've been working with, my director of data who I've been working with, like other PMs, other engineers. We're all like pulled into this one meeting. They're just like, "Yeah, you're all affected. From this point forward, you're on garden leave. So like, you don't have to work. You don't have to respond to any emails. Don't do anything. We'll get back to you in a couple of weeks," because that's the process here in the UK. And every country has a different process. And that pretty much put me back on the job market in 2023. And it was a difficult experience to navigate at that time.
Yeah. And then leading into what you're doing now with coaching, going through all this, and you're a high performer. You took roles that seem presumably attractive. Some of them, I don't know, in hindsight, you can see some writing on the wall, but hindsight's 2020.
Right.
So what happened to you could happen to anybody. It's happened to me 5 times. Some of the things I could have done to control it. Sometimes there are things that you can't do at all to control it. How do you take those learnings to best support your clients that you work with? Yeah.
Number one, I think it affords me the ability to empathize with people who are going through something similar, right? Whether it's having just a real shit boss who doesn't care about your growth, or like knowing how to cultivate relationships with the people that do really care about your growth and knowing how to leverage those. But then now I talk to lots of people who get on the phone with me. It's been surprising to me how willing people are to like open up to someone that's a complete stranger when they understand, hey, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help, and I'm here to find out ways I can help you. And as soon as I'm able to say something like, hey, I actually know what that's like. I've been through that. I understand. And while I think everyone's situation, there's probably some bits about it that are unique. I know at least what it's like to go through something like that. I might not know exactly how you feel, but I've been through something quite similar. And that affords me empathy with people. The other thing is that I've had time to process and learn from those experiences. And I've had mechanisms that I've built for myself, that I've adopted or adapted from people that I've worked with as leaders and been inspired by along the way to navigate through these types of challenges. And so I try to bring some of that perspective and work to people that I coach now is, hey, there will be this motivation and this desire to want to like move really quickly to solve some problem and just focus on the next thing. But our careers, they're not just a collection of events that happen in sequence unless we let them be that. And I've made multiple big consequential decisions throughout my career. There was like switching from marketing to product management. There was moving internationally. There was leaving a big tech job. And then now there was moving into running my own business and kind of focusing on a third arc of my career. And it wasn't as if I sat down and just had some deep thinking, figured it out. It was, I have specific like writing exercises that I would do for myself and that I've iterated on each time I've done that. I've created like scoring rubrics. Okay, I decided to leave Luxembourg. Where am I going to go in the world? I actually have a spreadsheet that lists out all these different potential places I would go, meet with my wife and say, let's look at all the attributes, the dimensions that matter to us. How would we stack rank those? What would be the deciding factor? What I find is that people's instinct is what am I a good fit for? And I'm going to go do that rather than what's a good fit for me? What are the things that matter to me? And then try to find where those two criteria overlap.
Yeah, that's exactly how we do it at Kadima. We're first really thinking about what your goals are, like work-life balance, compensation, location, whatever matters to you, because different things matter to different people. Flexibility, stability, benefits, and then like then narrow it down after that. But for people that don't think of that first, it's you go down a path without.
Yeah. Or you let the market dictate where your career is going to go.
Yeah, that's true.
And the market's not something you can control, but you don't have to be totally subservient to what the market has to offer or how the market views you. You own your own story. You get to tell it in different ways. And I've told my career story in different ways, depending on who I'm talking to and basing on what it is I'm trying to do. So whether you're trying to decide between an IC role or a manager role, who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Talk about the parts that matter. So now I find it to be something I'm very thankful for, that the experiences that I had, good and the bad, enable me to help other people navigate difficult decisions or achieve career outcomes that they really feel happy to celebrate in. And that's actually what drives me the most now. And what I realized earlier on in my career, which kind of led me to wanting to pursue coaching further, was when I looked back and said, what were the moments where I felt the most rewarded or the most energized? And it was always the feedback I would get from my team and my direct reports. And so the team I led in Seattle before I left, I'm still in touch with many of them. Some I still coached and mentored years after I was their line manager, and they still come back to me, tell me about how they reflect on my time with them. I've got former directs who work at Amazon still, or at Meta, or at Airbnb, or at Google, and many other places around the world. And they are just like, you're the best manager I ever had, or you really helped me navigate this difficult time in my career. Or that promotion that I helped them get was something that was a step change in their career growth, where they felt that maybe that wasn't something that was going to be in the cards for them. And so celebrating those moments with them gives me motivation and energy. And now when I work with people, those moments just give me more fuel. And it's so much better than the feeling you get where it's like, hey, I hit the goal. We sold 500,000 more units this year than last year. I'm like, okay, that's great for the company and well done, everybody. Great job. That matters less to me than, hey, James, I started working with you and I'd been on the job market for a year and I'm failing repeatedly and I don't know what to do. To just a few weeks later, it's, hey, James, we're now like negotiating two offers against each other and I'm getting a 15% increase on my offer for this new role. And then they go off and they write the feedback and they share it with me. And I'm just like, this feels amazing. I got a text at 11 o'clock at night from one of my clients saying the offer finally came in. And I'm just like, yes. My wife is like next to me in bed. She's like, what is it? And I'm like, oh, my client got the offer. And I love those moments. And that's part of why I do what I do now.
Yeah, that's awesome to find the thing like that really motivates you, drives you, and you're also great at ikigai. Cool, James. We're running low on time, and this conversation can go a lot different places where I have lots more questions. But alas, the episode must end. So 2 last questions I have for you. One, what is a great piece of sick career advice that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Sure. Thank you. I believe that this advice applies to everyone, no matter where you are in your career. And I think one of the most important skills, it doesn't matter if you're a product person, if you're a salesperson, if you're an engineer, like it doesn't matter what your role is. You need to practice storytelling and be writing stories along the way of your career. Our memories fade, but stories just play such an integral part in your career. And so don't wait until you need them to start writing them. And just know that they can help you with promotions. They can help you with new jobs. They can help you get out there and start doing public speaking. They can influence people. And it's just something that I wish someone really would have drilled into me early in my career. It's just, hey, don't let your job be the thing that defines the story for you. You write your stories along the way and reflect on them and use that as a means of kind of building the story that you want over time.
Yeah. Cool.
Storytelling, write stories, do it regularly.
Yeah. Own your story, own your career. Awesome. And then besides finding you as part of one of our Kadima career coaches, where else can people find you, reach out to you, and help you out?
Sure. LinkedIn is where most people find and connect with me. So it's just James Gunaca. I'm the only one that you'll find with that surname on LinkedIn. And yeah, connect with me, right? I love getting to know people, connecting, and you can expect normally for anyone who sends me a connect request, I typically respond and say, how can I help you? Because that's what I'm all about.
Awesome, James. And I'm glad that our paths have crossed and look forward to many more years of partnerships.
Same.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Alan.
Thanks, James.